When you finish your session on Sunday, parents sometimes want to know what you've been up to. It can be really tempting to give them a really short answer, just tell them what the Bible story or the passage was and rush off to get a coffee, especially if the sermon's overrun. Or we can go the other way and we can give them masses of detail, try and prove that we've had a great time, tell them every little detail of what we've learnt, show them everything that we've made. But the problem with either of those things is that either they turn it into a performance or they make the church and the session the centre of the child's discipleship, which we know it isn't. This can be a really powerful opportunity to equip and encourage those parents and carers and put them back in the driving seat, hand back to them. So there are two things to think about. Firstly, what you want to communicate, and secondly, how you want to communicate it. So let's start with the what. Those of us who've been doing it a while, you often just say the Bible story or the key topic or theme, and maybe we've also tried giving activities to send home. But what we do in our sessions is so much more than just the Bible story. We use it as a starting point to unpack much more, don't we? And those activities, they can feel like homework and another thing that parents have to cram into their already busy lives. So they get lost or forgotten, or they make the parents feel bad. So how about tweaking it just slightly and instead focusing on the key truth and the core of what you've taught the children? So say you've been looking at Jesus walking on the water. Rather than just saying, we looked at this Bible story and we drew around our feet, that's the story and what you did, you could focus on the key truth. So we thought about times when we were afraid and where God was in that, or how we could ask him for help another time. There are other things you can share about your session. How have the children engaged with God? Have interesting questions come up as a result of it? Maybe they've had a chat and catch time and they've shared with God times where they felt afraid. Let the parents know that, because they might be able to ask their child more about it and unpack it more with them. Or it might come up when they're doing chat and catch another time. So that's the what. What about the how? Well, there are lots of different ways we can do this, but I'd really encourage you to be realistic. As much as you like to think you might have a deep and meaningful conversation with every parent and pick up, that's just not possible. But maybe you could have conversations with one or two each week. Maybe, depending on your setup, if the parents all come at once, you could gather them round and share a little bit. There are a few other options as well. I know churches that have a whiteboard outside the room, which they write on kind of just before the parents come with some of that information. You don't even need an actual whiteboard. You could have a laminated A3 sheet you stick on the door with an interesting question to ask your child. You're trying to give those parents and carers skills and tools to continue the journey and start open conversations and give them open questions, not closed ones that are going to shut things down. So you could also use technology. You can text, WhatsApp, Facebook, email. I feel like it's a little bit hit and miss with those. You have to do quite a number because people engage in different ways. So that's on kind of the overall session and what you've been learning and what's come out of it. But there might be things for individual children as well. Perhaps you could follow up on those in the week. I went to a church where we had feedback cards, little A5 sheets, and for each child. We wouldn't do one for every child every week, that would have been too much work, but just ticked off in the rota so that over the term each child got a feedback card of some sort. And that might be a way that they've engaged with God, something that happened in the chat and catch time, an interesting question that came up. It might be something about their behaviour, that they really helped another child or they were amazing at tidying up. It might be something that the leaders felt as they prayed over that child before the session. Just another way of communicating the parents, handing back to them and saying, thank you for giving us your child for a while. Here's a tiny part of what we've done with them. Now back over to you to do the main bit.